Now, your party has taken a somewhat ambivalent position, saying that the Uniform Civil Code is not desirable at this stage and has asked to see a draft. I want to ask about the stage. This is a directive principle of state policy in the Constitution, which means our Constitution's architects believed it was a desirable principle. It has been 75 years and counting since India's independence. Why is this not a desirable stage for the Uniform Civil Code?
Look, this topic, I am not speaking strictly as the party because the party has made a stand clear. Secondly, I am part of a group in the party which is also going to now further take a more specific stand. So don't think that I am at all controverting the party stand or going beyond or this and that. I am explaining to you the concept, which is important for your viewers to understand.
Yes.
Let's start with what you said. So it's very clear that the framers chose their words carefully. First, they never put this clause in the part 3. They put it in part 4. And secondly, they said, shall endeavor to do something, not shall do something. Intent is crystal clear. They were, as is put in today's article by my colleague, they were not fools or ignoramuses who didn't know what they were talking about. The idea was clearly that you will make an attempt to approximate to a consensus which will then lead to this. Now, let's look at it very carefully and quickly in a few bullets. A, this government has the most divisive image, the most divisive actual acts and omissions, possibly for the last 75 years. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but clearly the ambience of divisiveness, trust deficit, people suspecting them, minority communities suspecting them. Number 2, therefore, is it anywhere near a consensus? Answer is clearly no. That endeavor is missing. Number 3, is there any specificity in what you say? You are, Barkha, in power for 9 years in the center. You are also in power for about 10 states on and off. Have you passed legislation? Obviously, no. You are now flailing your arms all over in one state, Uttarakhand, in another state here and there, because 6 months before the elections. By the way, you've been in return to power in Uttarakhand earlier, so therefore you had a time. Number 4, in these 9 years, forget not building a consensus, forget making the country more divided, making consensus impossible. Have you produced a draft? Now, I'll tell you why a draft is important. I am not at all against the UCC. I would think it's the best idealistic thing, like mother's milk or blue sky or no environment pollution to get. But the point is, the reason why you are not giving a draft is the following. Because God and devil lie in the details, Barkha. You don't want the details. You want to flail it like a dead body of an animal, like for cheap political gains. Take 3 examples. First of all, this is not about marriage and divorce. This is about succession. This is about adoption. It's about alimony and maintenance. Now, for each of this, will you approach 7 states in the Northeast and amend 5 articles of the Constitution? I won't bore you with details. 371, 371F, this, that.
Well, per the Nagaland Chief Minister, the Northeast could be exempt from the UCC. We don't know. These are media reports.
No. The point is you don't know because you have nothing to show for anything. You're just knowing it in the political speeches. Why don't you know? Because the central government is irresponsible in giving you no blueprint. As a matter of fact, considering that Manipur is in flames with inactivity of this government, do you want to have another flame set up in another state in Northeast? Next, what will you do with... I'm giving you simple examples. That's why the devil and God lie in the details. In the South, you can marry your first cousin. In other parts of India, you can do it also. I am not at all saying right or wrong. Are you ready? I'm now talking of the majority community, by the way. I'm not talking of the minority community where also some of this applies. Are you ready to address it? Have you made an attempt to address it? Number 4, what will you do with the other usual, bugbears, Hindu undivided family? Even today, people tend to forget. Forget the minorities, forget the tribals. The customary law of the majority Hindu community prevails over the statutory law. Today, technically, if you and I are part of some sub-community in Uttar Pradesh where the customary law allows different practices, we'll be
For
governed by that.
example, for
There's a,
example, for
no,
example.
in the Hindu code, there are exemptions saying that this Hindu code, which Nehru fought for reform and did, will not override customary law. One example is Hindus in Tamil Nadu. In Tamil Nadu and other states in the south, it is not uncommon to find marriages between the I forget the exact the bhuas or the mamas side one and the other side related. That's Hindus. I am not at all observing on the value judgment. I am saying you are making a fool of the people. Now then comes the real messy issue of personal law of minorities. And this is not personal law about only marriage. It's about alimony. It's about succession. Will you touch that? I actually would say, as the law commission of your government has said, your government's law commission, the Mr. Modi's government law commission has said so, much better is to look at reform, not uniform. Yeah. Reform means discriminatory provisions. Discriminatory provisions. For example, I don't think that you can put triple talaq banning and what they are now trying in the same basket. There are problems with the triple talaq in terms of procedural things, but I would not oppose it in the sense that it is completely, not untouchable.
Let me put it to you like this. You're also a passionate champion of the same-sex marriage cause. You have argued in support of that. And one of the formulations you gave was, rather than getting into the business of personal laws, let's just say those who want same-sex can get married under the Special Marriage Act, which can be amended. I put it to you that the Uniform Civil Code's idea is not homogeneity. It is that everybody can continue their customs, their rituals, except when they contradict the fundamental rights as guaranteed by the Constitution. What would be the problem with this idea? What would be the problem with this idea?
A very good question. Shows that you're becoming a cleverer and cleverer lawyer doing these programs with me. I'll tell you why. It's a clever question. But there is a fundamental difference. In same-sex, Barkha, we were arguing for a elective marriage under a platform known as Special Marriage Act, SMA. So we said that if A and B choose to marry under SMA, then other things can be suspended because both are electing to marry. I want to ask you that what you said is absolutely right. I wish it was possible. How do you have anything resembling a uniform or a homogeneous code where every personal law of every community is left to the optional voluntary situation? Then you have no UCC anyway. Then you are where you are today. The analogy between same-sex and here will not apply fully or even partly, because you are, how do you decide? Either you say the UCC will apply only. I'll give you one way you can do it, but is it enough? Is it satisfactory?
I think it should apply only when a fundamental. No, I think it should apply
it shall not apply
when a fundamental right is contravened.
How do you define? No. How do you define fundamental right? The Muslim thinks his succession law is fundamental right. The Hindu in South India thinks that his right to marry his cousin is his fundamental right. I, as a tribal in the Northeast, think that those 6 tribal customs are also fundamental right. These are vague words. These are ways to avoid the issue. You will see, either you don't tread down that path, but if you go down the path of UCC, you have to address it directly. Then the only way is this UCC will govern uniformity or homogeneity in ABC. You have to state the ABC, and in X, Y, Z, it shall not apply. If you want a UCC like that, you can try it. Give us a draft, we'll react. But then possibly you will be in that draft leaving out 75, if not 90% of the XYZs for your 10% tokenism.